Jason had always dreamed of stepping on another planet. Now, after years of training and waiting, he stood on the dusty red surface of Mars. His boots crunched over ancient rock as the wind whispered across the dry plains. He wasn't alone. 3 other crew members worked behind him, setting up scanners and tools. But Jason wasn't focused on the mission. He was staring at something odd, something hidden in the rock wall ahead. There were markings, old and worn, but clearly not natural. He touched them gently through his glove, and to his shock, the symbols lit up. A faint blue glow pulsed beneath. The dust, like the wall, was breathing. "Hey!" Jason called. "Come look at this." But when the others came near, the light faded. "It's just a trick of the sun," one teammate said, laughing. Jason didn't argue, but he felt something strange in his chest, like the wall knew him. Later that night, while the others slept in the habitat dome, Jason sneaked out. He couldn't stop thinking about the wall, about the symbols. The desert was quiet, and the stars above him looked sharp and cold. He knelt before the wall again, brushing the dust off the carvings. Suddenly, a soft humming sound began, deep and low. The wall opened, just a crack, just enough for a man to squeeze through. Jason's heart pounded, but he stepped inside. It was dark and cold, the air still. He activated his helmet light and gasped. The chamber was massive, with walls covered in glowing line symbols, numbers, drawings. They didn't look like any alien language. In fact, they looked familiar. Jason walked deeper into the chamber. At the center stood a strange object, half sculpture, half machine. It pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. There was a stone table near it, and on the table, a map. Jason's eyes widened. It was a map of Earth, but not like any modern one. The continents were different, not in the places they were today. There were cities marked across the planet, cities that didn't exist anymore. One was right where Antarctica was, and another stood in the middle of what should be the Pacific Ocean. Then he saw something that chilled him. Words written in broken Old English, scratched at the corner of the map. "Return of the children, when the flame is reborn." Jason stepped back, heart racing. How could there be English on Mars? How could a human language be carved into a Martian wall that looked thousands, maybe millions of years old? He heard a noise behind him and spun around. The wall was closing, slowly but surely. Jason dashed back through the entrance just in time, gasping as it sealed shut behind him. No one had seen him enter or exit, and he didn't say a word about what he saw. Not yet. Back at the dome, he couldn't sleep. He kept replaying the carvings, the light, the map, the message. He had recorded everything in his suit camera, but something told him not to upload it yet, not to the main system. Something deep inside him whispered, "This is bigger than science. This is not about discovery. This is about memory." The next morning, Jason walked alone to the spot again. He pretended to check his scanner, but secretly ran his fingers over the rock. Nothing happened. No glow, no hum, no door. It was as if the chamber had vanished, or had gone to sleep again. But Jason knew what he saw, and more than that, he knew something else. The chamber had opened only for him, only when he was alone, only when he touched the symbols. It had called him in, not by chance, but by design. Far above the Martian surface, in a hidden satellite long buried under the red dust, a light flickered. Something ancient, something waiting, had noticed Jason. And somewhere across the galaxy, a silent signal blinked once, then vanished. Something, or someone, had just woken up. Jason didn't talk much after returning from the chamber. He acted normal, followed the mission schedule, laughed at the right jokes, and smiled when asked questions. But inside, he couldn't stop thinking about the glowing symbols and the map that showed an ancient Earth. He kept the video file hidden in a private data cube, something not connected to the main system. No one could find it unless he gave it willingly. When their mission window ended, the team returned to the main station in orbit. Scientists were excited to receive all the rock samples, soil readings, and drone data. But Jason slipped away and visited someone he trusted more than anyone. Dr. Lana Gray, a geneticist known for her strange ideas and quiet mind. She had once told Jason that not everything old is dead, and not every myth is false. He gave her the cube without a word. She plugged it into her tablet and watched the footage in silence. Her fingers stopped moving the moment the map appeared. She zoomed in on the old English writing, then froze the screen. "Where did you find this?" she whispered. Jason didn't answer right away. Lana didn't press. She just stared at the symbols. Her mind racing, they took the image to her private lab and ran scans on the shape of the letters. It wasn't a copy or artistic guess. It was real old English, older than books from Earth's medieval age, but still human. Lana then did something strange. She ran a DNA sample Jason had given during his mission checkup through a custom program. She added a second sample from a small piece of material Jason had picked up inside the chamber. The result shocked her. The unknown sample carried human DNA. Not similar, not close identical. Yet it was older than anything they had on record. It didn't match any known mutations or drift found on Earth. It was cleaner, like the original version of humanity's blueprint. Jason stared at the screen, not fully understanding, but Lana looked pale, like she'd seen a ghost. "If this is real," she said slowly, "then humans didn't evolve on Earth." Jason blinked, confused. "What are you saying?" "I think," Lana said carefully, "humans were somewhere else first. Long before Earth." The room went quiet. Outside the window, Earth floated peacefully in the distance, blue and bright. Jason had grown up believing that Earth was humanity's home, the beginning, the mother of all. But this new truth was cracking that belief like thin glass. Lana started pulling up files classified, old, hidden behind locked codes. She had access to things most people didn't even know existed. Reports from ancient ruins on the moon, old ships found floating in deep space, all written off as unknown alien tech. But some of that tech had strangely human measurements, and some even reacted to human touch. Now, all those oddities made sense. They weren't alien at all. They were ours, just forgotten, buried, erased. Why would we lose this history? Jason asked. Lana gave him a strange look, almost sad. "Maybe we didn't lose it," she said. "Maybe someone made us forget." Just then, Lana's lab lights flickered, her screen flashed, and a warning appeared. "Unauthorized access detected." They both turned toward the door as a soft clicking sound echoed from the hallway. Footsteps, heavy and fast, getting closer. Lana pulled the cube out and handed it to Jason. "Run," she said firmly. Jason hesitated, but one look in her eyes told him she wasn't joking. He slipped out the back, through the maintenance corridor. While alarms began to ring in the upper halls, someone had seen the file, or at least knew they were digging too deep. Whoever it was didn't want the truth shared. Jason made it to the docking bay and slipped into a cargo shuttle. He launched it before security could override the doors. As the shuttle spun into orbit, he looked down at Earth again. He didn't feel peace anymore. He felt watched, like the planet itself was holding its breath. The data cube felt heavy in his hand. He knew now that this wasn't just a discovery. It was a key, and someone, somewhere, wanted to keep that door locked forever. Jason didn't know where to go. The cargo shuttle was small, cold, and built for machines, not people. He sat in the dark cabin, holding the data cube tight in one hand. Every few minutes, he checked the radar screen to see if anyone was following. So far, nothing, but he didn't feel safe. His mind kept going back to Lana's face before she told him to run. There was fear in her eyes, but also something else, hope. He didn't know if she got caught or worse. He could only wait and pray she had a way out. As the shuttle drifted near the asteroid belt, a strange signal appeared on the console. It wasn't from Earth, and it wasn't coded like any military message. It was soft, like a whisper, and it repeated a single phrase in a language Jason didn't understand. But the computer translated it automatically. The words appeared on the screen in glowing text. "Child of Flame. We've waited long enough. Jason's heart skipped a beat. The same words had been carved into the Martian wall, the same language that responded to him. He stared at the radar again, and now he saw it. A ship was approaching, but it didn't look like anything human. It wasn't sharp or metal or fast. It looked alive, like a floating silver creature, glowing softly with blue veins across its surface. The shuttle was pulled in without his permission. No force, no damage, just a gentle tug, like gravity. The alien ship opened like a flower, and Jason's shuttle landed inside. He held the cube tighter and stepped out, ready for anything, but what he saw made him stop walking. She looked like a girl, slim, pale skin with a soft shimmer, glowing lines across her face like tattoos. Her eyes were large and gold, and she wore no armor, just a soft robe like woven light. "I am Vela," she said calmly, her voice like music. Jason didn't reply. Too stunned, she tilted her head. "You came from the Red Chamber," she said. "We thought you had all perished." Jason finally found his voice. "What are you talking about?" Vela didn't answer right away. Instead, she walked through a long hallway of glass, and Jason followed her. They entered a room filled with floating lights, each one showing a memory. One light flickered and showed a group of ancient humans standing on a high mountain, surrounded by alien species bowing to them. Another showed tall ships leaving Earth, carrying people who looked just like Jason. "You were once the guardians of the stars," Vela said. "You protected life, you ended wars, you shaped planets." Jason shook his head. "That can't be true. We're just people. We barely left our own system." Vela turned to him. "Because your history was stolen, buried under dust and lies." "By who?" he asked. She hesitated. "Those who feared what you could become again." Jason stared at the images, feeling small. If all this was real, it meant Earth was not just home, but a hiding place. "Why are you telling me this now?" he asked. "Because," Vela said. "You touched the flame." Jason frowned. "What flame?" She touched his chest, right where his heart was. "It's inside you, passed from your ancestors. Sleeping," she said, "but now it wakes." Suddenly, the ship shook, and warning lights flashed. A sharp sound filled the air, and Vela's face turned cold. "They followed you," she said. "You were not alone." Jason felt fear rush into his body. He looked at the lights flickering in the memory room, each one a piece of truth, and knew someone was coming to destroy it. Vela pulled him into a smaller room, filled with smooth chairs and control panels. She spoke into the air in her native tongue, and the ship responded like it was alive. A barrier rose between them and the outside, and weapons formed along the ship's sides shaped like long wings. "Stay here," she said. "If they take the cube, they will erase your past forever." Jason nodded, holding the cube tight as the room sealed around him. Outside, he heard the sound of battle begin. Flashes of light filled the sky, and the alien ship spun through space like a dancing star. Jason sat in the silence, watching through a small window. He didn't know who those attackers were, but he knew they didn't want peace. They wanted silence, control, lies, and now, for the first time, he felt something rise in his chest. Not just fear but purpose. If the past was real, and it had been stolen from humanity, then maybe, just maybe, it was time to take it back. Asterisk. The crew found her standing alone in the hallway, staring at the cube in her hands as if it were alive. She hadn't moved or spoken since they escaped the collapsing planet. Her eyes looked distant, locked on something none of them could see. The ship's medic tried to speak to her, but she raised one hand gently. "I'm fine," she said softly. "I just heard something." No one else had heard a voice, but to Ellen, it had been loud and clear. The cube had whispered coordinates, old ones, pointing to a dead sector known as the Hollow Edge. It was where ships vanished, where beacons failed, and where no one ever returned. Now she had to go there, because the voice in the cube had called her by a name she hadn't told anyone. It had called her Mother of Stars. As they flew toward the Hollow Edge, The ship began to act strange. Lights dimmed for no reason, gravity flickered, and crew members complained of hearing whispers in the dark. One of the engineers swore. He saw a child walking the halls at night, but no children were on board. Ellen didn't react. She was changing, and the crew could feel it. The deeper they went, the quieter space became. Not just silence, but a complete absence of sound, like even the stars were holding their breath. Then they saw it. A single structure floating in the void shaped like a tower, but wider at the top like a bell. It wasn't metal or stone, it looked like bone. The crew refused to go any closer. Ellen went alone, stepping into a pod and guiding it toward the silent tower. As she approached, the cube in her hand glowed brightly, and the structure reacted. A hatch opened at its base, revealing a staircase covered in dust and old vines. She stepped inside, her footsteps echoing like thunder in the stillness. The air was dry, filled with the scent of burnt memory. Walls were covered in carvings, humans standing beside creatures of every shape, not as enemies, but as allies. Above them all was the same symbol again, the circle with the line through it. She reached a round chamber at the top and found a woman waiting. She wasn't human, not quite, but her face had something familiar. She wore robes of glowing threads, and her eyes were pure silver. "I've been watching you," the woman said, her voice like a song wrapped in silence. "I don't know who you are," Ellen replied. "You will," the woman said. "I am the one who remembers everything, even what you chose to forget." Ellen's hand tightened on the cube. "I didn't choose anything." The woman stepped closer, eyes kind but heavy with sadness. "You once stood here long ago," she said. "You gave the order to erase Earth's memory, to hide the truth." Ellen shook her head, her heart pounding. "No, that's not possible," the woman raised her hand and touched Ellen's forehead gently. In that moment, Ellen remembered. She remembered standing in front of millions. She remembered war so massive it swallowed stars. She remembered betrayal, a friend turning enemy, and the fall of great cities. She remembered giving the final command to hide everything, to scatter the truth, and to sleep, until the time came again. She collapsed to her knees, breathing hard. "I was one of them," she whispered. "You were their hope," the woman said. "You still are." The woman handed her a second device shaped like a ring of light. "The second key," she said. "The final one lies beneath the ruins of Varan." Ellen stood, shaking but stronger than before. "What's waiting there?" The woman looked toward the stars. "Everything we lost, and everything they fear." As Ellen turned to leave, the tower began to collapse. The woman didn't follow. She stayed behind as the dust swallowed the chamber. Ellen escaped just in time, her pod shaking violently as the bone tower shattered into nothing. Back on the ship, the crew stared at her like she was no longer one of them, and maybe she wasn't. 2 keys now pulsed in her hands, one whispering, one burning. The final one was still hidden, but not for long. She didn't know what she would find beneath the ruins of Varan, but something inside her knew the path would end in fire, and whatever woke up next might not be on her side. The ruins of Varan didn't appear on any recent star maps. They were too old, too cursed, and too dangerous. The last ship that had gone near them was found drifting years later, its crew gone, its walls scratched with one repeating word: "Run." Ellen was not afraid. She was beyond fear now. 2 keys pulsed under her skin like living fire. They whispered to her in the silence, guiding her hands even when her mind faltered. Her ship hovered just above the black mountain ridges of Varan, where ancient stone towers leaned like broken teeth. No trees, no sky, only gray storms swirling endlessly. The moment her boots touched the surface, the storm paused. Not stopped, but held still, like something was watching her and didn't want to blink. The crew refused to join her this time. They had seen her eyes glowing in her sleep, heard her speak in voices that weren't hers. Now they only waited in orbit, unsure whether she'd return as herself or something else. Ellen walked alone through the ruins. every step echoing against the hollow bones of the planet. She reached the center of the city, where a giant statue stood half-crushed, its face erased by time. At its feet was a hole in the ground, not natural, a doorway. The cube in her pocket began to heat up, the ring in her hand spinning slowly. She knew this was it. The final key was buried below. She stepped into the darkness. There was no light, but she didn't need it. Something inside her had begun to glow, like her veins remembered sunlight. As she moved deeper, the tunnel narrowed, until she had to crawl. Then suddenly, it opened into a giant chamber so wide she couldn't see the walls. And in the middle, floating above a stone altar, was a sphere made of shifting gold. Ellen stepped toward it, but her foot stopped mid-air. Something invisible blocked her path. A voice filled the chamber, rough and full of pain. "Why did you return?" it asked. Then a shape rose from the shadows, tall, armored, with one eye glowing red. It wasn't alien, it was human, or had once been. "I came for the last key," Ellen said calmly. The figure laughed, but the sound was hollow. "You came for your death," it replied. Like before, images flashed in her mind. This man, standing beside her once, smiling, fighting, bleeding. He had been her second in command. He had betrayed her. He had fallen to the enemy to save himself. "I remember you now," she said. "Then you remember why I must stop you," he growled, stepping forward. "You weren't strong enough to hold the empire together. You weren't strong enough to die with it," she said quietly. He roared and raised a blade of black metal, but she didn't move. The ring in her hand spun faster, lifting into the air. The cube burst with light, forming a shield between them. His blade struck it and shattered into ash. He stumbled back, shocked. "You unlocked it," he said, voice trembling. "Yes," she said. "And now I'll finish what we started." She stepped past him as he fell to his knees. He didn't stop her. The golden sphere floated down and pressed itself into her chest. It didn't burn. It didn't hurt. It felt like coming home. Light exploded from her body, filling the chamber. Symbols on the walls glowed, ancient codes lighting up like stars. Her mind opened fully. She saw everything: the rise of the First Empire, the wars, the betrayal, the secret plan to hide the truth, and the final message they left for her: unite the keys, awaken the fleet, return our people. Her feet lifted from the floor as energy pulsed through her. She was no longer just Ellen Raynor. She was the rebirth of memory. She was the one chosen to bring humanity back from the ashes. When the light faded, the chamber was gone. She stood outside again. On the ruins of Varan, the storm had vanished. The sky was clear for the first time in thousands of years. Above her, the ship hovered silently. Inside it, the crew stared in shock as their systems came alive with strange symbols. Old weapons activated, engines recharged, and deep in the ship's core, a voice spoke. "Commander confirmed." Ellen looked up, her eyes glowing silver now. 3 keys pulsed inside her, no longer separate, but one. The path ahead was clear. She had to return to Earth, not the Earth they knew, but the Earth buried under lies. Because now, the first ones were no longer a myth. They were returning, and she was their voice. The ship didn't need a pilot anymore. It moved through space like it had always known the way. The crew watched silently as Ellen stood near the front window, not touching the controls. Yet the stars obeyed her. The engines responded to her thoughts. They didn't ask questions. Not after what they had seen on Varan. Her skin still glowed faintly, and her voice sometimes echoed even when she whispered. Ellen Raynor was still with them, but something else now shared her body. The keys had changed her, or maybe just brought her back to what she once was. As Earth appeared in the distance, the ship slowed down on its own. The blue planet looked peaceful from afar, but deep below the clouds, things were already beginning to break. Old satellites were waking up, transmitting dead languages into the void. Storms formed over ancient ruins long thought forgotten, and people everywhere were starting to dream of cities they had never seen. Ellen closed her eyes and saw it clearly, flashes of the past overlaid on the present. Temples beneath oceans, vaults under deserts, signals buried in the ice. The world was remembering, piece by piece. And someone was trying to stop it, the moment. The ship entered Earth's orbit. A warning came. A cold robotic voice echoed through the ship. Unauthorized identity detected. Ellen Rayner is not recognized. The crew panicked, but Ellen didn't blink. "They've changed the system," she said. "They've erased me." Missiles launched from Earth's defense grid, hundreds of them, all locked on her ship. The crew screamed, but Ellen raised her hand, and the missiles stopped, frozen mid-flight like puppets without strings. Then they turned around, falling back into the sea like dying stars. The ship was silent, the crew speechless. She turned and looked at them calmly. They would rather destroy me than hear the truth. Moments later, another ship appeared. Black as shadow and silent as death. It had no flag, no lights, just smooth curves and sharp lines. Ellen knew it immediately. The ship had once belonged to her thousands of years ago, but now it had a new pilot, someone who had been hiding in the shadows of history, waiting. The enemy stepped onto her ship without opening any doors. He simply appeared, walking out of the darkness like a ghost made real. Tall, pale, wrapped in a cloak made from what looked like starlight. The crew backed away, but Ellen stood her ground. "Vale," she said, her voice quiet but sharp. "I was hoping you were still dead." He smiled, a smile without warmth. "You tried to bury me," he said, "but you forgot monsters don't die. They wait." Ellen's hand twitched, power building beneath her skin. "Why come now?" she asked. "Because you gathered the keys," he said. "And now the final seal is breaking." She stepped forward, the room trembling with invisible energy. "You turned against your people," she said. "I evolved," he replied. "You became a parasite," she snapped. He raised his hand, and for a moment, the air turned black. The crew couldn't breathe, their vision fading. But Ellen didn't move. Her eyes flared with silver light, and the blackness vanished. "You're not strong enough to stop me anymore," he warned. "Then why are you afraid?" she asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he vanished, leaving behind a single phrase that echoed through the ship. "Meet me at the throne." Ellen turned toward Earth, her hands shaking slightly. The throne was real. She had hoped it was a myth. But Vale's words confirmed it. Buried beneath the mountains of old Europa, hidden inside a fortress older than all cities, there sat the one place capable of restarting everything or ending it forever. The crew looked at her, waiting for answers. "What do we do now?" one asked. Ellen looked at Earth, at the clouds shifting unnaturally, at the ancient machines reactivating below. "We land," she said. "We go to the throne." Because the past wasn't done with her, and the final memory had not yet awakened. The wind on Europa was never meant to carry voices, but today it whispered her name. Ellen stepped out onto the frozen ridge, her boots cracking ancient ice that hadn't felt footsteps in 10,000 years. Below her, hidden beneath a mountain, shaped like a broken crown, was the throne. Not a seat of power, but a living machine, a mind of metal and memory, still waiting for its final command. She wasn't alone. Far behind her, the crew waited near the ship, unwilling to follow her this time. They had come this far, but something in the air made them stop. Even the bravest of them felt it, that this place wasn't meant for them, only for her. The wind grew stronger as she moved forward. Snow danced like ghosts around her. Then suddenly, silence. A circle of warmth in the middle of the storm, untouched by snow or time. There stood the doorway, black, tall, with symbols carved so deeply they seemed to bleed shadow. She placed her hand on it, and the ice melted at her touch. The door slid open, not with noise, but with a deep breath. The corridor inside pulsed with slow red light. She walked slowly, feeling each step grow heavier. The air wasn't cold anymore. It was thick with something else. Something waiting. Then the hallway ended, and the chamber opened. There it was, the throne. It was not built to be sat on. It floated, surrounded by rings of light, spinning slowly, each ring etched with memories from the past wars, peace, betrayal, hope. At the center of it all, a pulsing sphere, shaped like a heart, beating just once every few seconds. And standing beside it, Vale. He didn't speak at first, just looked at her with quiet eyes. Then he said, "This place was always meant for one of us." Ellen didn't answer. She looked at the throne, then at him. "Then why did you run from it?" she asked. He laughed. "Because I knew what it would do to me," he said. "But you always believed you could carry it." She stepped forward, the 3 keys pulsing under her skin. "They were never just keys," she said. "They were pieces of me." Vale nodded slowly. "Yes, and now that you're whole, the throne will listen." But before she could reach it, he blocked her path. "I don't want to stop you," he said. "I want to join you." Ellen narrowed her eyes. "You killed billions," she said. "You shattered the stars, betrayed our kind, turned truth into myth." He raised his hand. "I did what I had to survive," he said. "No," she replied. "You did it to be remembered." He stepped back, smiling sadly. "Then finish it," he said. She walked past him and raised her hand to the throne. The moment her fingers touched the sphere, time seemed to pause. She saw Earth, not as it was, but as it had been. Before lies, before fear, before memory was erased. She saw the empire in all its beauty and all its pride. And she saw the day she gave the final order, to bury it all, to protect what remained, to make humanity forget. Now, the throne spoke in her mind. "Will you restore what was?" She stood still, thinking. Then she whispered, "No, I will build something new." The rings of the throne turned golden, the lights grew brighter, and across Earth, ancient machines awoke, satellites blinked, underground cities stirred. Oceans parted to reveal towers lost to time. People began to remember dreams they didn't know they had, and in space, ships long buried in asteroid belts lifted again. Not to wage war, but to return. Ellen opened her eyes, glowing fully now. She turned to Vale. "It's done," she said. He looked at her with tears in his eyes. "You remembered who you were," he said. "No," she replied. "I chose who I will be." The throne faded into the ground, its purpose fulfilled. Ellen walked out into the cold light of Europa, but she didn't feel cold. She felt alive. The crew watched her return, silent, unsure whether to kneel or run. But she only smiled and said, "Let's go home." As the ship lifted from Europa's surface, a voice echoed across every human mind in the galaxy. A voice that had once been forgotten but was now reborn. "We were the first, and now we are the future." Asterisk.